All right. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Built to Scale. And today is going to be a very focused topic on government contracts. And I know in Built to Scale, we talked a lot about financial management best practices for construction businesses, but I'm personally a big believer that outside of just general accounting and finance, that one of the best things that you could do is to make sure that your revenue is solid, that you have a good revenue strategy. And government contracting, is a solid revenue strategy that, where do you want to go and what do you want to build and making sure that you're getting enough work. And there's a lot of opportunity in government contracts. And so super glad that we have today's guest, Karla Talisee of So She Builds, and she is a specialist in government contracting. So super stoked to have you on today, Karla.
Yeah, thanks for having me on here. I'm excited, and I know you helped me a lot last time. A lot of my contractors gained good insight, so hopefully I can do the same.
For our audience that, Carl and I did a LinkedIn Live a little while ago on financial management best practices for those seeking to do government contracting. But, particularly like even within Brady CFO, we work with clients that do government contracting and there's nuances, right? There's little things that you have to, hurdles that you have to overcome. And for somebody stepping into it new, Carla is the expert in this stuff, right? This is exactly what she does is that she consults on these activities and helps contractors to be able to pursue government contracts and to be able to win those projects and win those bids. So super excited to dive in. And so kind of first question here today, Carla, that why would a contractor want to pursue government contracts versus private contracts that say, go into working, retail, commercial construction, that go into building fast food restaurants, retail concepts, et cetera, hospitals, all that. Why would somebody want to go from private to government? What's the benefits of doing that?
Yeah, I think it's different for each tier. So, for example, if you're a small contractor, when I say small, maybe you're just getting started or you're a few years in. Normally, business development tends to be difficult. You're wearing a lot of hats. You don't really have time to chase projects. And I've worked in residential myself. The life cycle of the project is a lot shorter when it comes to meeting the client, to closing the deal, to building. But we all know when you're building residential, you're dealing with so many personalities. And some contractors, what they're great at is just building. They don't want the drama, I could say. And so when you do something smaller, let's just say a $500,000 project, maybe it's not $1 million project like you do in a residential project, it doesn't come with the attitude. So that's one if you're a small business, and it's just a good way to build your portfolio. If you've built a public project and you market it well, trust me, anybody who has a home or they're building an ADU is going to trust you to build their project because of the compliance, how strict you have to be on your documentation, the insurance, your bonds, so they know that you have a package to complete their project correctly and well. When it comes to a medium-sized contractor, I would say the benefit is there's larger projects that you can mix into your pipeline if you're already doing other private work. And you also have the financial backing to grow. So I think a medium-sized contractor benefits the most out of the small and the extremely large because you really diversify your portfolio and you have the systems, you have the team in place because obviously a multi-million-dollar project is a lot more documentation, a lot more tracking, and completing the project itself. I mean, you just need to make sure you have the right project manager, superintendent. So you're going to need to have some well-paid individuals. So you have that already doing your private work. So going into public is the easiest, easy turnover to kind of mixing your portfolio. An extremely large contractor, I'm talking about 50 million plus, like $100 million jobs. I mean, really at that point, you're already doing really well. So the benefit is you're just adding more revenue to your team and you're continuously growing. I mean, when I talk to contractors who are doing over $100 million project, their project manager has a project manager that has a project manager. And you think like, how is this company even affording this? But they really are making that much money on these projects that they're able to just hire anyone. And half the time we don't even know what they do. But you're already so big at that point that it's just nice to keep adding projects to your portfolio and growing your company at that point. So it's definitely different based on the tier you're in.
I liked what you brought up that, getting qualified, overcoming the hurdles for government contracting, all the certifications, the fact that you and I had some recordings in regards to getting your finances in order to be able to do government contracting. It practically sets you up more appropriately for other private jobs because if you're qualified to do government contracting, you're very likely qualified to do some of the other work too. It sets you up nicely, but it's like you said that. I mean, there's some nuance in regards to the project management, right? That you're probably going to have to level up some team members that you're not just working with a homeowner anymore. You're working with, a bigger manager in a city department or a state department that, it's a professional environment, right? And so you have to make sure that all those nuances are considered. But yeah, I really like what you said there, that by going this route and going through all the certifications, I mean, um, we've seen it too that like some clients, they get really frustrated that they have to go get a CPA audit and all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, but like once you do, your ability to be bankable and the fact that you will have stronger financials just makes you a better operator anyways. And so these are good things for you that it feels like it could be a teeth pulling process sometimes, but it's good for you. So I appreciate you highlighting that. What's your opinion of this? Because we did kind of talk about that the government contracting role, it can be a diversification play. Do you feel like, contractors should go all into government contracting and that be their main thing? Or do you feel like it really should be a diversification play that they do projects and have a mix of projects, whether private or public?
Yeah, for small and medium contractors, it makes sense in case there's a situation like COVID that happened 6 years ago, where projects normally are at a halt. When it comes to government projects or state projects, they're constantly moving because it's public infrastructure and safety. So you want to have that diverse portfolio to be able to, even, for example, if you take on one public works project and you just don't do it for another 2 years, at least you know how. So when the situation does arise, you understand the process and you understand what it takes. When you don't understand that and you're put in a situation right away overnight, that's scary. And also it takes time. So that's why I recommend to do it before it goes bad. You want to make sure this isn't your back pocket before those situations happen. As far as, again, a contractor 100 million plus, if you want to go all in on public works, again, it makes sense because if you're, let's just say, 2 months behind on payment, you could afford it. And when you're a medium to small contractor, unless you're really, really great with your books or you've really just built a really fat bank account that you can fund a project that's, let's just say, running late 6 months, which I don't hear so often, it's not what you want to do going all in on public works. Not to say that that happens on every agency, every project. I've heard of great ones and I've heard of bad ones, but the reality is you don't know if your project is going to be one of the bad ones. So having a private portfolio helps that cash flow going while, let's just say, you're still waiting for payment on a public project.
Yeah, I was interested to hear your perspective, but that's definitely my agreement too, is that having the mix of jobs, I think, and I've talked with somebody who's, kind of a specialist in marketing for construction businesses. And I think it's nice to be able to market that you have a specialty in something, but still accepting jobs in both areas and pursuing some diversification in, your job portfolio is good. It just, things happen, right? Like we've had one client that, and this is kind of a lead into our next question because we've had one client that, is pretty concentrated in working with the Veterans Affairs Office. And yeah, I mean, some projects got put on delayed and it's not fun, right? That they're having to navigate what do we do during these delays, that we have all of this overhead and all these team members and all this staff, but what do we do during these delays now, all related to this one department, right? And so over concentration can be a really bad deal. But I'm interested to understand, what's your perspective? Because yeah, I think people can look at public works and you can layer it into three different structures, at least in my mind, federal, state, local municipality. But then even inside that, there's individual departments and entities that you're interacting with. Like public is so broad, I feel like government contracting is so broad. So can you help our audience kind of understand maybe some nuances between those different areas? Like, what should they expect if they go and work with, I don't know, the city of Los Angeles versus the full state of California? Like, what's been your experience with that?
Yeah, so I would say federal work, there are a lot more opportunities and normally the dollar value is a lot bigger. But I would say I wouldn't, if this is your first time going in, it's the most complicated. The documentation's a lot longer. And you don't really have a lot of in-person interaction. So I feel like in anything, if you don't have in-person interaction, it's very hard to feel motivated to do it. And so then when you're going at a state level, you can do a lot of more in-person interactions. But in construction, I have to say this. I have a lot of contractors who don't really want to go into state because if you win a contract, and for example, if you're based in San Diego and the contract is in Sacramento, then you did all of this work and you didn't even know which city it was going to be in. And so when you're in a really large state like Texas, California, doing state work can be tricky because you have to account for all the traveling. So you have to put that into your estimate. It's just a lot of work that on, I would say, a contractor who's doing private work, you're not really accounting for that. Unless you're known to do that, then I think it makes sense. If you're doing work all across the state, do state level work. But if you're working specifically in a few cities, doing state work is going to feel extremely uncomfortable. And then you're also wasting your time. And as well as going back to federal and state, the procurement cycle is a lot longer. Let's just say you're paying a team, a compliance manager to create your bid, your estimator to put things together. You're not going to see the turnaround time on award until 3 to 4, maybe a year later. So that hurts a bit more. Again, when you're smaller and medium size, it also makes you discouraged. And I think as an owner, you're always looking at revenue. So let's just be honest, you're going to be a little harder on your team because you're investing all this money and you're not seeing a return so fast. And that's why I always recommend just working locally in the beginning. One, to just build your comfortability, understand the compliance, and two, you actually get face-to-face interactions with these agencies. So they host events, they host, I would say, procurement events, economic development events, meet the prime if you're a subcontractor. So when you're going in person, one, you want to be sure to market yourself well, but two, it makes it seem more real. People get to know you and you get to understand the process. You get to ask other individuals how this process has been. So, for example, if there are agencies that a lot of people don't like to work with, I go to these events all the time. People are very verbal about it. Some people are even there to collect payment on certain agencies. I see this a lot with universities and school districts. I don't know what it is. I mean, this is my theory on it. I think that since they don't have an internal small business development or business support department like certain cities, they don't really care. They're there because they need to build this infrastructure for the school, the universities, and there's no one on their team thinking we need to support businesses, we need to make sure they don't fail, we need to help our community. That's not really their goals. They don't have those goals forced on them. So harder to push certain terms or negotiations with those type of agencies. So something to look out for. So this is my tip. If you're going to work with a local agency, ask the questions. Do you have an economic development department? Do you have a small business program? Do you have a mentor-protégé program? When they say yes, you're automatically going to be helped a lot more as even a large contractor, but specifically a small and medium-sized contractor, because they invest money into these departments to help businesses. So if you're not doing well working for that specific agency, it makes them look bad. So they care. So for even if they don't care about you, trust me, they care about themselves. It's all PR. They want to make sure that you're not going around saying, oh, I did business with this X, Y, and Z city. If they have an economic development department, they support small businesses. But I was a small business and I failed because I was paid 6 months late. So it's just something to analyze. And again, that in-person interaction, you normally get to meet these individuals. They introduce these departments. So that's a really great tip for anybody that wants to stay safe.
You brought up so many good points there. I want to dive into a couple of them. Because, yeah, I mean, we've talked to some clients that like work with school districts and they say, I will never work with a school district again because they held my retainage for 3 years and I've messed up all my subcontractor relationships as a result of that. And so they say, I'm just building churches now, for example, like I'm not doing it into schools anymore. And, but to your point, it feels like, there's not something there in some of those departments. And so it's really department by department. And to your point, kind of navigating what are other people saying about that department? Um, you brought up something about protege programs. That, years ago I learned about this in working with a general contractor that I just had no idea that these types of things existed. So can you kind of dive in a little bit more about protege programs? Like what are they? What do they consist of? Talk us through that.
Yeah, so that's something that we actually do at Social Build. We partner with different types of agencies to create that because again, I have the background working in construction, and normally I would give you an example. These programs is a consultant that comes in and they help guide the contractor on one, just the process. Every agency has a different process. So they just teach you the process, where to find the projects, what the process actually looks like. And then they kind of give you maybe 1 to 5 contacts as far as if you're a sub or if you're just who to talk to as far as if the engineering department, just things like that. So they're kind of making that connection for you. That's what a that protege program looks like, and it is beneficial. But they haven't progressively gotten better. I feel like they're stuck a little bit in the early 90s. But I have seen that there's consultants like me or other individuals in New York and California, these major cities that are helping shape that differently, where you could have somebody that actually has a construction background teach these protege programs, because we understand from the contractor side how to translate it for them. Because if you're just speaking in government procurement language, contractors, they don't understand, nor are you making it interesting. You're making them so confused that you're discouraging them from doing this because all they're hearing is, this doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to lose so much money on this job. If that's their first interaction, they're not going to want that. So I would just say keep a lookout for any of those programs, go to them. But if at some point you feel that it's not beneficial, then I think again that's where you can find a consultant like me or anybody else in this industry that actually has a construction background, and you'll get way more out of that than sometimes those mentor programs. But again, I feel like California and New York, I know myself because I know individuals working in these two states, they're investing more money to find the right people to teach these programs. So I do see in the next 5 years, they're progressively going to be very beneficial and they're actually going to help you understand how to get the work and feel confident in doing so. So you're not nervous thinking, oh my God, I know what I'm doing. And you know what? Maybe this was a bad idea.
Walk us through like a little bit more of what they do in those programs because I know even like, you know, I'm wondering, is it similar to like large general contractors? Like I've seen some where for their subcontract relationships, like they have like cash flow training. They have, different stuff in regards to how to run your small business for the subcontractors. So their subcontractors are successful too, right? But like what all happens in these protege programs?
Yeah, I love that. So again, working in California, and I know some individuals in New York, they've built a strong network of contractors that I would say it's on their dime, but it benefits them as well. Like you're saying, they teach you how to estimate a project correctly, right? As a subcontractor, that making sure that you're using all the right, like you have a certified payroll accountant, and if you don't, let's teach you how to do that. Secondly, is how do you approach a project as far as your margins? You'll have their estimator on their team just teach you about their approach. Again, every contractor is different, so you're going to get educated differently. So that's why, again, I would just attend different ones. Another thing too is they have like a risk management training. So in these risk management trainings, they go over real situations that have happened with just either different subs or them themselves as the main GC to make sure that you don't create that problem again. Again, it's protecting them, but that's why they do it all the time to teach you. And even if you don't use this to pursue a public project, I think that it's really useful information that you could still transfer into your private work. So it's always free. There always are limited spots, but this is just, again, you navigating these public agency websites and making sure that you're ahead of the game, getting the emails and signing up. And if you just want more of like an intro of what you're getting yourself into in public works, I think that that's a great one. And again, all it costs is your time.
Yeah, great feedback, great insight there. I do want to call out because you mentioned it. For our audience, you brought up certified payroll, and for smaller, contractors, I'm sure that they've heard that word. I'm sure that they could be familiar with it, but just the reality of your payroll accounting is about to expand. If you're entering government contracting, I mean, it could be nuanced, but especially for federal projects, et cetera, your and state projects, your accounting, I should say complexity. I hate to use that word because it's so negative, but it's just the reality of your payroll accounting is about to expand because of the necessity of meeting certified payroll regulations and making sure that you're paying minimum, prevailing wage for particular types of jobs and roles within particular counties, et cetera. So just be prepared that your compliance at the payroll level is about to expand. And I don't know about you, Carla. I've seen some struggle in like some outsourced accounting firms that specialize in that. Like it does seem like you're probably going to need to get an internal accountant that knows how to do some of that certified payroll and that, can help whenever you're venturing into a new county, a new district too, that, will know where to look to go, help you out with that. But yeah, for our audience, certified payroll is a big one. Just be prepared for that as you're entering into government contracting. Would you agree, Carla?
Yeah, I would agree. And that's why I think every contractor or subcontractor should be familiar with what the prevailing wage sheets look like. You look at them, it looks like an insane spreadsheet. It doesn't even make any sense. And I think that one makes you respect the certified payroll compliance officer because you realize like what they have to do. But then two, you want to understand what you're looking at because you're still going to want to review the documentation that these certified payroll compliance officers are doing. You don't want just to hand everything over. You want to have some sense of oversight. So again, that's why I think it's important for you to understand it. You don't have to understand it as technically as they do, but just maybe take a course on it. And then as far as, again, you're right, getting a certified payroll compliance officer that specializes one with certain agencies that you've worked with or states that you work with is important because it does shift. I wouldn't say it's not too much, but you definitely don't want to get audited. So you want to make sure that that person is competent, they have experience in working with that agency, because the last thing you want to do is spend money on a project you're trying to make money on, right?
Well, I think it's too that not just for, hey, just from an audit perspective, but that you're not overpaying the employee too. That, because with all these different prevailing wage rates by, district area, et cetera, and by different regional area, you want to make sure that you're potentially not applying the wrong high prevailing wage rate to an employee that, under the circumstances wouldn't necessarily need to do that. And I mean, that's what we've seen too, is that like you can have self-performed labor, like a contractor or something, or I should say, a woodworker or a plumber, on your staff, that if they're going to multiple different jobs, that doesn't mean that you pay them the same prevailing wage on all the jobs if they travel to three different job sites in that day and only one job was a prevailing wage job, right? And so yeah, I just feel like a good accountant can also help watch your butt too, that you're not overpaying somebody too that you should be paying. So just kind of a plug there. I don't mean to be too nerdy accounting, but it's a relevant thing I feel like for government contracting people should be aware of. So um Carla, given what um, in this kind of, in our current market, I mean, we're talking right now at the end of February 2026. What do you see as some of the big opportunities in government contracting and public works? Like, what would you see that if people have some experience or specialty in particular areas that, yeah, this is where there's some boom right now? What would you say that is?
I think it really, again, is per state, but I would say if you live in Florida, for example, disaster relief is huge. They have a lot of individuals who are on call. So if just do a quick Google search, your current city or a large city nearby, a lot of individuals don't sign up for these, like they're called like master service agreements. They're ignored because they're not listed under the same procurement website as open bids. It's a bit different because you're more of an on-call contractor and you submit what it is called your qualifications. It's like an RFQ more so, and then you're put on a list and you're on call. But you also need to have the team to do that. So, but you don't have to accept the work every single time. But you don't want to constantly tell an agency no, 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 because then they're going to stop calling you. So I think that's a really good opportunity. Again, disaster relief in California, or any city that's really old. A lot of the sidewalks are pretty bad, and so if you're a concrete, sub, I think that's they do a lot of emergency repairs or they just do like yearly repairs. So there's constant workflow. I work with a lot of contractors that do that in the city of LA. I mean, they get a new project probably every month to go out and repair and they move those projects quickly. You start thinking, oh, I have to get a right of way permit. No, the city's gonna move this quickly because they want to get this done. So this is a great way for you to have a low stress project and get experience in public work. So that's another one. Um, a lot of people don't think about like power washing companies and anything like that, like a cleaning service. Those are constantly going really quickly. And then, of course, airports. So when it comes to being a big GC, if you work for any if you're near an airport, I would definitely look at what they're building. A lot of airports are getting older, so they're adding or they're just doing upgrades. Again, it all has to be compliant. I mean, these are flights going, and you want to make sure that the public's safe. So I think that that's another great avenue, and especially if you're in California and New York, I know both they're doing like billion-dollar terminal work, so something to look into. And there's actually not enough contractors bidding it right now. That's why you see so many events and so much outreach. They're begging contractors to go in and subs to do the work, but because they don't know how, um, I would say they just like, oh, I don't want to do all the work and I don't want to learn how to do it. But I'm like, there's so much money into it. Why not? Like they're going to be building this airport for years.
Carla, you know, you kind of just brought it up that the reality that a lot of contractors are scared to get into government work, into public work, simply they don't know what it takes, and this is where your firm comes in. I'd love for you to kind of map out for us, like, what do you all do? Because I know that there's probably nuances by entity or by whether it's federal, state, local municipality, et cetera, but kind of give us a high level overview, like, what do you all do? What does it take to actually start getting the ability to actually bid on public jobs?
Yeah, so we audit your company, we look at your team, we ask financial questions, and from there, we either tell you, yes, your company is competitively ready to bid or not. So that's really, we can do that in maybe under 20 minutes, just getting information from you. From there, if it's a yes, we get you bonded, we connect you with right agents to make sure that they support small businesses to advocate for you, as well as either provide you with the right connections with somebody who can do your accounts correctly if it's a mess, which we see a lot often. And then let's just say they complete that, then okay, they're bonded. After that, we make sure they do certification. Certification sounds like it's going to be really easy. It's really complicated. I've had contractors when I worked at a consulting agency that they told me they've been trying to get certified for 2 years. I'm like, what? Why? Like, why didn't anybody just sit at a computer, share screens with you, and basically do it for you? So that's something that we do. We basically go on a Zoom call. We do all your certifications with you. We just make sure that you have all your tax documentation saved on your computer. Again, if you're a newer contractor, you probably don't have that many years. If you're a larger contractor, you do. And again, it really just comes down to the contractor's comfortability as far as sharing their financials. If not, we can guide them over the phone without seeing their financials and uploading it for them. So there's two different approaches. And so then we're done with their certification. Now we're pulling up RFQs, RFPs. Locally, we ask you the question, how far do you want to work? What areas do you want to work? What kind of work? What's your ideal project? And so we do all that research for you. Again, public agency websites are very confusing. So it sounds like, oh, why can't I do that myself? I always tell the contractor, we don't even have to include that into this consult if you want to do it yourself. And they always try to go into it themselves. Like, oh, I have no idea what I'm reading, what I'm clicking, what I'm downloading. I'm like, exactly. This is what we do all the work for you. And then from there, we basically teach you everything as far as like just being prepared. We show you where to find prevailing wages, who to connect with for certified payroll. If you do want somebody to handle your financing and your accounting, again, making sure that you're connected with the right insurance agencies. And then we kind of go over in general, I would say my experience with contractors estimating projects. So we'll just pull up an RFP that fits their scope of work and we'll do like a test run. I'm like, okay, let's estimate this project. What are you including? And normally they forget to include a lot of things like the cost for their bond. They forget to include that in their estimate. I'm like, no, 100% you want to include that. You don't want to have all these additional costs that you wouldn't have on a private project that now you're paying out of pocket. I'm like, if you're doing that, you're doing it wrong. And so it's just really teaching them that process. But again, that's for a small to medium sized contractor. So it really goes all the way to, on average, I have a small to medium sized contractor. We go through this entire process. They submit about 3 bids, whether it's a local agency or state, and they're awarded a project really in 3 months. It's really that fast, but you need to be motivated. You really need to advocate for your team. You need to trust your team. You need to make sure that your teams are on the calls for training. We teach you how to create a bid package. Bid packages are hundreds of pages of documentation that you need to sign. It needs to be in order. If it's not in order, you get disqualified. So again, this is all the training we provide to a contractor. I really call it hand holding. We're going to hold your hand and make sure to get that first bid that we held your hand from point A to award. And once you're awarded, our goal is to make sure that you feel so confident and so educated, you never talk to us again. That's always been our goal. That's why I started Social Builds, was again working for a consulting firm that wasn't doing that. And I wanted to make sure that contractors are confident in growing their business without me. As far as a larger contractor, who's gone into public work, sometimes they just don't know how to strategize or what events to go to, how to market themselves. Um, it's more, think of it not so much public works focus, it's more of a business focus, like how to grow my company. And we combine both business development, marketing, and government contracting to grow their company. So it's a bit of a different approach. So again, it matters where you are. If you're small to medium, then that's more of a hands-on approach. If you're a larger contractor, it's more oversight, strategic, like a strategic growth plan for your company.
No, it's great. Love that like you said, that there's companies out there that sometimes can be tripping over themselves for 2 years trying to get certified, and you'll just do it on a Zoom call. And just the value of being able to step in and do public works, that quickly and get it done and be able to pursue those jobs. I mean, that's the key of it of what you're doing. But I guess to our audience, the reality is, um, you know, I'm just encouraging. I'm not trying to just do a sales pitch for Karla. It's the reality that sometimes this stuff is complicated. You might hit a roadblock somewhere. um, don't go down this route alone because if you mess up your first project, you may not get the second one, right? And you may not get the next bid. And so, try to get it done right and try to make sure that you make money on the first one too, so that you actually are in business to be able to do the second one anyways. And don't trip yourself that you underestimated because you didn't factor all the costs of all the certification, the fact that you would have to upgrade to an accountant that could do certified payroll and all this and that. And, you want to make sure that you make money, that it wasn't a loss and that you turn away from it. Like there is opportunity here. It's just, know what it takes. And so, really appreciate that, to kind of begin to wrap us up, Karla, that what are the, you know, what are the, what is the tactical plan of the best next three steps that contractors could take to start venturing into government contracting? I mean, obviously they could call you, right? 100%, like step number one, and, and the step two and three not needed. But um, what would you say for the audience member that, what's the top three things that they should be considering now and they should focus on now to get prepared to go bid on public jobs?
I guess there are like two ways I can answer that, the literal way and then more of like oversight. I would say, do you have the right team in place? So the reality is, if you're doing private work and you hate documentation, it's only going to get worse. So do you have somebody to do all that documentation for you? That's on the low level, right? We're not doing complex. As far as the accounting, like we talked about the certified payroll, prevailing wages, again, making sure your cash flows right, all of that, it really takes experts. You cannot do this yourself. So the question is, one, are you going to do it yourself? Do you trust yourself? But two, do you have the money to invest into those services? Because you need to have them in place. And then three, it really just comes down to making sure that the flow of your team works. Because exactly what you said, you don't want to fail in the first one, because if you fail your first bond, you're not getting bonded more. So again, our goal, especially at Soci Builds, is to make sure that you're not failing. And that's why we're honest. We're not here for a sales call and we're going to tell you, yeah, your company's great when it's not. No, because that's also our reputation on the line. We're going to tell you, hey, we talked to you for 20 minutes. You're nowhere near, based on your team, based on where you want to invest or how much you want to invest as far as like outsourcing certain services. And as far as the way that your team flows, it's just not going to work. You're not organized. I mean, really, that's just simply what it is. You're not organized and you're not financially ready. But I would say in other ways, if this is your first time being here in government contracting, I mean, it really just comes down to signing up with your state procurement system. So I know you're in Texas, but every state has their own. Simple Google search, sign up, get registered. If you're in your local city and you want to do work with them, sign into your agency portal. To certification. Certification, again, it's done state, local, making sure that you get that completed. And then three, just go on any website that has a government contract, download an RFP, print it. It's 200 pages long. And whenever you're bored, sitting in a wait room, start reading it, start highlighting it. The reality is you need to get comfortable. And until you're comfortable holding that 200-page document and you, in a sense, understand what is in there, you're always going to be afraid. This is how you get over that I guess like that thought process of saying, oh, I can do this. It seems too complicated. I'm like, it's really not. It's just so much information to digest. And I can't even do it all at one time. I need to take breaks and I'm looking at a 200-page RFP. But I think just highlight it. I tell contractors, Adobe is your best friend. If you don't know how to use it, again, that's another thing. If you're going to go into government contracting, learn how to use it, because you need to make sure that all your documentation is in order. You're highlighting everything. So those are the simple things. But again, I think the more important thing is the larger oversight, your team flow, and your financial backing to be able to do government contracting. But if you want something simple, it would say it's the other three.
I wasn't expecting those, but you were absolutely correct. And I think just, yeah, that aspect, I think so many people in life that they can be so afraid because of the unknown. And it's like, well, at the end of the day, just break it down, right? It's a 200-page book. Spend some time reading the 200-page book and you'll probably feel comfortable with it. You just have to digest it. But you have to just overcome.
And this is a quick tip. It's 2026. Download the PDF on your computer and click find. I think there's keywords to look for: scope of work, requirements, insurance, bondability. And so you start understanding how to navigate these RFPs and RFQs. It's 200 pages, but there's only certain pages that you really need to know the information on. And so again, that's with being comfortable with the documentation.
Yeah, I mean, even there's AI for this too, right? That can summarize like what are the top things in the work scope, or what insurance requirements do I have to have? Summarize that for me. Like you don't necessarily need to read the whole 200-page document.
Yeah,
Like at least
exactly. That's what
today
I was
it's
saying. I
2026.
I I definitely feel like when you have it in your hand, it becomes more real, and so you become more confident with it, and that's why I just think it's like a mental exercise, not like a literal one. But if you're doing a literal one, again, I just download an Adobe and click Control Find, and just you don't have to read every single page. Just find the information that you need.
Yep, 100%. Well, Karla, thank you for joining us. I'm an advocate of this because the reality of diversifying yourself as a contractor that, we've certainly seen in our amongst our own clients where if they're too concentrated in one area, it's a real risk that, things happen where that, particular client, if they have just a couple clients, project delays happen across all projects if they're all concentrated under one client base. And so having some diversification between private, government, et cetera, is nice. That I just we're real big advocates of it because it creates just that continuity and that sustainability and revenue that's so important to help that business thrive. But just appreciate your insight that this stuff and this space well. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. For our audience, where can they find out more about you and your business?
Yeah, so our website is soshebuilds.com, spelled exactly the way it said. We're also on LinkedIn, So She Builds. You want to follow my personal journey. My name is Karla Talisee on LinkedIn as well as Instagram. And so that's where you can find us, what we're up to. And we also provide a few free guides. So if you go on our website, there's a zero cost guide to download for your first couple steps and how to get into GovCon.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you, Karla. Appreciate
Yeah,
you.
thanks.
Thanks, everybody. See ya.
Bye.
Hi, everyone. So, if you enjoyed today's episode and you found value, or it raised some questions for you about the next best steps for managing your finances in your construction business, please reach out to us at bradycfo.com. There's a contact page there where you can fill out, and that will come straight over to us. Either that, or you can personally find me on LinkedIn. My name is Mason Brady, and feel free to send me a message. And happy to chat and talk through anything you're facing today, and happy to provide some advice. So, thank you all. Appreciate it. See you.